Hello, hello. Okay, so today Mrs. Lewis was bamboozled. I was. I had such high hopes. I was going to go out into the forest over by the beaver lodge and out to the fern forest out there, and I was just going to see all kinds of tracks and those snowshoe hare tracks everywhere, like I did the last time I went out to the beaver lodge before Christmas break. And you know what? We didn't see anything. We went all over the area out there. Not a single track. Lots of little squirrel tracks. Lots of probably little chipmunks or ermine tracks. But no snowshoe hare tracks. They're out there. I already showed you that I found their tracks once. So the kids were kind of bummed, and I was kind of bummed, and we sat down and we had a little talk about, I wonder why? Where are they? And so we talked about animal behavior, okay? Which is something that we're going to be getting more and more and more into over the next several days, okay? So animal behavior. What do I mean by that? Well, just like you guys have different behavior for different, different things that you're feeling or wanting, animals have different behavior for things that they're feeling and wanting and needing. Sometimes our behavior is bad. Sometimes our behavior is fine. Sometimes our behavior is silly. Sometimes our behavior is sad. It depends on what we need. That depends on how we're going to behave. And so I told the kids, I said, well, these animals, they live here. We don't see them all the time because they have a scared behavior, right? And so when people go out into their forest and they hear us coming, because obviously we're loud and they know that we're there, what is the behavior that the animal displays? Hiding behavior. Right? Keeping themselves safe behavior. So they hide, they run away, they get away from us so we don't see them, and they don't have to be worried about us because we can't find them. So we talked about that, and we talked about how we know that they're out there because, one, I already showed you the prints, and two, I picked up that piece of their rabbit poo. And then we've seen rabbit poo out there on the ground before because now the kids are like looking for pellets all the time. So we know that they're out there. So, where are they? And I had one little kiddo say, oh, they're in their house. I'm like, okay, they're in their house, and we don't really know where their houses are. They're around. And so I said, what do animals do when we're not around, scaring them away, making them hide? Like when there's no people in the woods, what do you think the animals are doing? Yeah. They're looking for food. That's what animals do. Animals are always on survival mode. All right? There's very little time in an animal's day where they're just like, I'm going to go for a nice walk just because I want to. Or I'm going to go roll around in the mud for fun. Right? Animals don't do that. I mean, sometimes they play, but it's rare. Most of the time, animals are always on survival mode. They're always doing things that's going to help them survive and stay safe. So they're always gathering food. They're always gathering supplies for their shelters. They're taking care of their babies, right? They're always on survival mode. So when we're not out there scaring the living daylights out of these animals, they're hunting, they're foraging, right? They're, like the beavers, constantly building their lodges, constantly, all right? So what are they doing all that for? What do they have to survive besides predators? Because we already know that, yes, lots of things eat, animals eat each other out in the wild, right? So besides predators, what is it that the animals need to survive from? And people, right? Besides predators, other big animals and people. Winter! Yes! Winter, the cold! Right? They can't live, exposed to the winter. And then when it snows and all the leaves go away and all the plants die, what do they eat? Right? So in the fall, before winter happens, in the fall, the animals are on survival. So they're foraging, which means that they're gathering food and nuts and berries and bark and sticks and all of these things that they eat. And they take all that food and they stockpile it into the place where they live. We can call it their den, right? And they stockpile it in there. So that way, they don't have to leave it much, right? Because they don't want to go out in the winter. It's cold. And then, if you think about a bunny rabbit, a snowshoe hare, unfortunately for a snowshoe hare, they're a big menu item for a lot of bigger animals like foxes and coyotes and eagles and hawks and other big birds, and there's all kinds of animals that are like, yummy snowshoe hare, and they eat snowshoe hare. So, obviously, the snowshoe hare is like, I'm not going out there if I don't have to, right? So, in the fall, they gather all the food that they possibly can. They store it in their house. So that way, when the snow does finally come, they can stay in there for as long as possible. Now, eventually, they're going to have to come back out. They're going to eat food. They're going to run low. Or they're just going to get antsy sitting in there because they don't hibernate. They're like beavers. They don't hibernate. And they're going to come out again. And we're going to see them. I'm going to go set this back out. I've got my game camera. I'm going to go set that back out. As soon as I find some tracks and see where they're going, I'm going to set that thing up again. And I'm going to find them. And then we're going to do some more investigating. But for right now, this is the discussion that we had today about why, if there's so many snowshoe hare living around here, why can't we find any of their tracks? It's because if they don't need to come out, they're not going to come out, period. So we're going to learn a lot about snowshoe hare because they're pretty fascinating creatures. We're going to learn a lot about them, just like we did the beavers. And something that I do in the class, but I do it outside in our nature classroom, is we put together a KWL chart. The K stands for what do I know? The W stands for what do I want to know? And the L stands for something new that I learned. Okay, so know, want, learn. I already know, I want to know, and I learned. Something new that I learned. Now, you don't have to do this on one piece of paper. You can have one piece of paper with the heading know, with your K, your know. And then make a list with your partner, your learning partner, about all the things that you already know about, or think you know, because sometimes you think you know things and you don't actually know anything, but we'll find out. So all the things that you know about the snowshoe hare. And then on the next page, or on the next section, you have the heading want. What do you want to know? Maybe something like, what do snowshoe hares eat? What eats a snowshoe hare? How big is a snowshoe hare? Right? Those are the types of things that we might want to know. Okay? And then in a couple of, probably a couple of weeks, we'll fill in the learned section. All right, but right now we're going to focus on what we know and what we want to know. Okay? And so this is what I want to see you guys do at home with your family. Is fill out a K and a W paper for know and want to know. And I'm going to do this with the class tomorrow too. And then maybe tomorrow afternoon, seeing how things go, we can kind of go over it together. Hopefully we get around to getting it all done. Things are so different when they're all here in the classroom. So that is the big focus tomorrow. We did this with beavers. We're going to do it again with snowshoe hare. And it really is awesome to go back and be like, oh yeah, I remember when I asked that question about why a beaver has a flat tail, right? Because somebody wanted to know that. Why does a beaver have a flat tail? So we put it under the want to know. So that is your job for this lesson. And if you were having trouble tracking, if you were able to go tracking today, in hopes of seeing snowshoe hare tracks, the reason, hopefully this lesson gave you a little better idea about why they're not out there right now. Because if they don't have to come out, they're not gonna come out. Okay. So, all right. So that's your job, and listen to the book that I posted on the virtual classroom. It's a fun book. You get to be a kid detective. It gives you little problems and mysteries to solve, so it's a really good one. And I hope you enjoy doing this activity, because you're going to realize how much you know and want to know. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.